Welcome to our Symposium of the day. In this symposium, we are going to speak about the well-known Hungarian talent support program, the so-called Aranka program, created for disadvantaged students 21 years ago. The permanently developing Aranka program, active for 21 years, as I mentioned, was the first national secondary school program to integrate underprivileged children living in small settlements into the best grammar schools all over the country, into schools where they would have not had the chance to be admitted to, and they would have not been able to achieve those outstanding performances without the special help they got in these schools. The Aranka program had been launched with a lucky combination of political will, money, and not the least, with a lot of enthusiasm. Professionals joined forces with the grammar school teachers to use the most advanced scientific achievements of this field and adjust them to the relevant practical experiences and possibilities. A process of institutional self-development, in progress for 21 years by now, was started in one or two institutions by county, which meant that there are actually 23 institutions like that all over the country. And they interpreted these results in a program in accordance with local specifics. This was not easy, since the teaching staffs concerned were used to students characterized by good family backgrounds and by outstanding student performances. Consequently, they found it very difficult to discern talent in underprivileged students coming from deprived families. And even more difficult was for them to believe, and that time I was one of these teachers as well, that with appropriate assistance, these children would catch up and be able to perform as did their better off peers in the schools. Nevertheless, they did exactly that, and by the end of the first 5 years, there were almost 3,000 students in the program nationally, and their achievement were the same as with those students coming from middle-class families. Ever since 2000, our colleagues have identified around 600 students annually, in cooperation with the schools, local authorities of the poor regions. The staff members of University of Debrecen played an absolutely important part in developing the guidelines of the talent support program, and there were certain pedagogical innovations, and actually some of them already rolled out to the public education over all the country, that have contributed to the achievement of such results. The first and perhaps most important innovation was the insertion of a transitory or a so-called preparatory year before the 4 secondary school years. In this year, teachers mapped deficiencies in the academic and cultural knowledge and tried to remedy them. The other key point was that these children, at a distance from home, lived, and they are living still today, in dormitories, cooperating with schools. I mean, the dormitories were cooperating with schools. And they were monitored, not only during the school time, but also through the whole day. And these dormitories became their second homes. And actually, it was created as a second home for them. It was also very crucial that special subjects were taught for these students. And they were introduced later all over the country, such as learning methodology, which meant that we tried to teach the children how to use self-regulated learning. Or we also introduced the so-called self-awareness classes. And many other highly successful innovations could be also mentioned. After 2000, the original concept was supplemented with 2 other sub-programs within a few years. One concerned Roma students and was based on boarding school accommodation, boarding school, I mean again dormitories, which we call dormitory in Hungary. Of course, this is not to say that the talent support program did not include a good many of Roma students as well. In the framework of this symposium, however, we shall get acquainted more with the researches concerning the talent support program itself. Nevertheless, I would like to tell you some few words about the two smaller scale subprograms as well. The Roma dormitory program was first introduced in the school year of 2004-2005. Its purpose was to apply a pedagogical toolkit suitable for the dormitories to let a much higher rate of children coming from the poorest and least educated families to complete regular, full-time, vocational and general secondary school programs. The specialty of this program is that the secondary school dormitories undertake the responsibility for enrolling a predefined number of children to a vocational or a general secondary school after a so-called preparatory year at a dormitory. So this is not a preparatory year in a grammar school, but a preparatory year in a dormitory. And these dormitories assist them to finish secondary school successfully. The vocational school subprogram is similar to the previous one, in that the dormitory is caring for the vocational school students and help a certain number of students to obtain a vocational qualification. And they try to raise the number of students with multiple disadvantage, coming again from the poorest and least educated backgrounds, who can complete a vocational training. The talent support program was accompanied by a continuous psychometric measurements overreaching 21 years, conducted by a 5-strong research team of University of Debrecen, producing an incredible amount of data for the special field of the science. As the program progressed, Eötvös Loránd University, ELTE, from Budapest, and Pécs University have also joined in the sociological examination of this program, looking at various aspects. We are particularly pleased that members of all 3 universities of science are present here with us in the symposium, where they will present longer-term exciting research projects. First, we will listen to Anikó Fehérvári, coming from University Budapest, ELTE, who is an educational sociologist, had watched and been interested in the talent support program and its subprograms almost from the start. Together with Aranka Varga. Actually, we can show Aranka Varga in a moment. Okay, so with Aranka Varga, head of the Department of Education, head of the Department of Education Sociology at Pécs University, and Anikó co-authored a study volume on the programs. The title of this book is Resilience and Inclusion, Evaluation of an Educational Support Program, published in Hungarian, but also in English. After Anikó's presentation, we are going to listen to Silvia Fodor, representing the University of Debrecen. She will present a study made together with Dr. Judit Páskuné, who is not with us at the moment due to the pandemic. And we shall also meet, after them, Fanny Trendl, a lecturer of Pécs University, a PhD student of Miss Aranka Varga, mentioned already. She will present a higher education organization providing basically disadvantage compensation and talent support that can be interpreted as a follow-up of a secondary school project or Aranka project. And this other program, which we will hear about, is also attended by many of those students who were members of the Aranka program as well. Lastly, it is very important to say and to mention that the educational policy and the education administration are really open to using these research results for developmental purposes.
Ladies and gentlemen, greeting from Budapest. My name is Anikó Fehérvári, and I'm the director of Institute of Education, Eötvös Loránd University Faculty of Education and Psychology. My research focus, educational inequality. My presentation today is connected the same topic and is entitled Socially Disadvantaged Student in Hungary, the Evaluation of the Arany János program. Okay, let me give you an overview of where we were headed today. First, I will present background inequality in education, then discuss the Hungarian and international context, give short overview of Arany János program, and I will then present the two studies I have conducted on the effectiveness of the Arany János program to reduce educational inequalities and promote disadvantaged groups through education. Last, I'll give some conclusion and implication for policy and practice. So, why do we need to address inequality in education? Here are some data to highlight the importance of this topic. According to McKinsey report, the achievement gap causes 2 or 4% GDP drop in the US. And another study shows significant difference in learning, 4 months in equivalent in math, 4 months in Dutch. Schools with a more disadvantaged population experience larger learning losses. More recent data suggest that all these losses have even been amplified by COVID-19 situation. As the picture on the left suggests, our society today is like a withered tree. I would like to present theoretical background used in this study. The essential characteristics of this topic is the exploitation, the connection between education and society. Several authors, for example, Bourdieu, Coleman, and Downey, emphasize this process and phenomenon. There are 2 main theories. According to one theory, social inequality appears in schools. Children of different social groups get different, often unequal chances, so their achievement is also different. School inequality then transforms into social inequality through the various qualification these students acquire. According to another theory, school can compensate for social disadvantages. Both theories has been empirically validated. New research emphasizes the role of schools in either facilitating upward mobility or cementing existent inequalities. Now, let me give you an overview of Hungarian context. What do the Hungarian data show? According to national and international assessment, family background has a substantial impact on achievement. Hungary is one of a few countries in the world where performance is determined by the family background. PISA test shows social background can be accounted for 46-point difference, while OECD means 37 point. Family background is responsible 23% of the test scores, while OECD mean 17%. The proportion of underperforming students is high. At the same time, the proportion of gifted students is low. Moreover, these trends have not changed in the past 20 years. What are the reasons for this? Picture shows the structure of Hungarian education system. The circled section indicates the place of primary and secondary schools in the system. As you can see, there are several school types students can attend, and for some student, choices have to be made as early as at age of 10. There are different learning paths and early selection. Learning paths are separated at an early stage. Students can choose secondary school at the age of 10, 12, and 14. Student performance are based on the significant differences between schools. Furthermore, the difference of achievement is influenced by difference in social background. In addition, the Hungarian school system increases the differences rooted in the social background. As a consequence, in primary school the gap is narrower than in the secondary school. Okay, moving on to my research. Arany János program started in 2000 in secondary schools. Entry into the program based on the family background. There are 3 target groups in the 3 subprograms. The type of disadvantage differs according to subprograms. So in the first subprogram with considerable disadvantage, and the third subprogram with serious disadvantage. The goals of the 3 programs are different, but each seeks to support students to graduate and acquire a professional qualification. Aims to aid gifted students with social disadvantage to enter higher education or to achieve graduation and a professional qualification. As the picture here shows, it's not enough to give an equal chance, but we also need to provide additional support. What is the additional support in the Arany János program? In the program, participation is based on a primary school recommendation followed by a skills assessment test. 42 schools and dormitories participated in this program. The curriculum contains an extra year which encourages learning support. For example, motivation, self-efficacy, arts, learning to learn. I have to emphasize the role of dormitories, which is essential. Students do not merely stay in these facilities. They are not only a form of accommodation, but also offer several extracurricular activities, for example, school trips, sport, arts. Furthermore, the program highly supports language learning, improving digital skills, and acquiring a driving license. Okay, we use 4 concepts in our research. First, early school leaving. This approach has a greater risk for children of low-educated parents and students with disadvantages. Second, disadvantages often add up. So the second concept is intersectional approach. This analyzes demographic, ethnic, and social effects and their reciprocal effect in each other. Resilience is a person trait that can help people overcome disadvantages. And the last approach is inclusion approach. This same problem from the point of view of a school and learning environment. IEP schools provide this inclusive environment. Okay, our research question was, what affects student resilience? We conducted 2 studies on this topic. The first study investigated the factors underlying students' resilience, and the second examined the role Arany János program in reducing the achievement gap when compared with a control group. Research conducted between 2017, we asked all students and schools involved in the program. We used quantitative and qualitative method too. So we carried out questionnaires, focus groups, interview, and we also used other data sources, national administrative databases, and program monitoring reports. The study asked the following questions: how does the program contribute to student resilience, and what is the relationship between the family personal background and students' achievement in the program? It's important to note data collection was carried out by students of Roma College at University of Pécs. Now, let me give you an overview of family background. Low-educated parents take up 60 and 70% of sample. Every program has a high proportion of Roma students. Furthermore, parents' occupation status shows employment rate is high, but temporary employment is also high, and there is a huge risk of unemployment. Subjective financial status shows the subjective opinion is better than the real situation. And finally, parents' attitude to school shows 40% of parents actively support their children in learning. It's important to note this is a high proportion among low-educated parents. Okay, previous international studies have highlighted 6 factors that have the highest impact on individual performance. There are the following: confidence, self-confidence, future vision, purposefulness, network, and altruistic behavior. Previous research conducted in Hungary shows that low levels of these variables can be observed among the low-educated and Roma groups. In our research, students in the program have a high level of confidence, self-confidence, and purposefulness. Furthermore, Roma students have a positive outlook on the future. I'm talking about student future plans. We found high degree of willingness to learn, both short-term and long-term academic goals. In the first sub-program, talented program, plan to go to higher education. In second sub-program, we're somewhere in the middle with students aiming for either higher or vocational education, and student in third sub-program only wish to finish secondary education. However, these goals differ based on the sub-program type the student participated in. We developed a logistic regression model with family background and personal characteristics. We were looking for the variables that have an effect on student performance. We received different results per program. In the first sub-program, we found that graduation, self-confidence, future vision, and altruistic behavior had a positive, but low-educated parents had a negative impact on student performance. In the second sub-program, we found that graduation, altruistic behavior, purposefulness had a positive, and Roma origin and working had a negative impact on student performance. And in the third sub-program, we found that graduation had a positive, while low-educated parents had a negative impact on student performance. As we can see, graduation is a future plan, has the greatest effect on student performance. Okay, let me continue now with the second study. In this study, we examined the role of Arany János program in reducing the achievement gap. Our research question was, what are the difference in terms of progress and student achievement learning paths between disadvantaged students participating in the Arany János program and other non-participating disadvantaged students? We used the longitudinal control group method, and we used the National Competence Assessment Database, 3 time points for each participant in 6, 8th and 10 grade. We analyzed paired samples, and we compared the academic performance on the 2 groups in grade 6 and 10th. In grade 6, all participants were still in primary school, so grade 10th results can also be considered an impact of the program. We compared the competence assessment results by means of one-way ANOVA analysis. The grade 6 results of the 2 groups were significantly different. In the Arany János group, the average results were higher than in the control group. By grade 10, the achievement of both groups increased. The improvement of control group was less than the Arany János group's improvement. The control group's achievement in both grades were similar to the nationwide average, but the Arany János students' achievement was above the national average. As I pointed out earlier, the Hungarian school system is highly selective. It has 3 selection points. Every Arany János student who at the time of the research studied in the 8th year primary school continued their studies in the grammar school. How about students on the control groups? Well, in grade 9, only 60% of control students studied in grammar schools. After primary schools, 31% continued to study in secondary vocational schools that concluded with the Matura. This is a final exam in Hungary, and 13% went on to study in vocational schools. Vocational schools and secondary vocational schools give worse opportunities for continuing studies in Hungary. Okay. Earlier research has drawn attention to the relative nature of subject grade given by teachers. Differences may result from the varying standards and values in different schools. Research also suggests that teachers' perception may be influenced by the student's family or ethnic background. For example, a teacher may think that a disadvantaged or Roma student is less intelligent. Therefore, we examined the relationship between subject grade given by teachers and student competence assessment test scores. Percent correlation coefficients were different in the 2 groups. In the control group, there was a moderate to strong correlation even with the grades awarded for attitude and effort, but in the Arany János groups, the correlation with end of year results was weak to moderate. Arany János students had better grades in all areas. Teacher perceptions were highly correlated with grades. Teachers' perceptions were influenced by students' behavior and attitude. As participation in gifted education program is based on the primary school's recommendation, we examined other background factors available in the database. We found that the odds of inclusion in the program were better if the student participated in some kind of school-based extracurricular gifted education and sport program. While there was a significant relationship between the competence assessment results and academic attainment, the relationship is less strong in the case of Arany János student, and irrespective of their score of the competence assessment test. Okay, the regression analysis also highlighted that the main difference between two groups was in the attitude grades. This is the key factor that had significantly increased the odds of being selected for the program. Although students take gifted identification test before they are admitted to the programs, it depends on their primary school teachers, their perception and their stereotyping as to what extent and in what ways they support students. And it seems teachers consider students' attitudes to a greater extent their cognitive skills. Okay, now turning to the conclusion. First, the academic achievement of Arany János students surpassed that of the control group. Their GPA competence assessment test results and school grades improved already in grade 6, and the difference between the two groups had slightly increased by grade 10. Second, selection to the program was based on teacher perceptions. Third, both students and families were motivated to students acquiring secondary or tertiary education degree. Personal key factors were learning motivation and positive outlook on the future. And finally, the Arany János program offered the chance of successful upward mobility. Now, let's see what possible implication of our study has for policy and practice. First, education policy should also seek to support gifted and compensatory programs, as they could have long-term benefits for both the individual and the society. Second, there should be a wider involvement in the program. The recruitment policy of primary schools need to be reviewed and adopt a more inclusive approach. And finally, extracurricular content should also be increased in primary schools. We hope with that by following these suggestions, we can reduce the learning loss and our society will turn into a green tree. Okay, here are the sources used in the presentation. And thank you for your attention.
Dear listeners, I'm Silvia Fodor from the University of Debrecen, and I speak also on behalf of my colleague Judit Páskuné, who is one of the main researchers of the Arany János program. Our research focuses on the perceptions of work and leisure by underprivileged students. I would like to give you a short review of our findings. A child's family and parents serve as a formative, consistent, and significant influence on a gifted student. In this, there is a complete agreement between theoretical and practicing professionals. Parenting occurs within a family context influenced by lots of sociological factors, including financial, human, social capital, family structure, socio-economic status, belonging to an ethnic group. But our presentation will focus on these factors with a special emphasis on their psychological aspects. The psychological approach seizes the environmental effects at the level of micro-events within the family, like inconsistent parenting, conflicts, or disinterest in education. These family and educational effects, whether psychological or sociological, must be taken into account even if the child is admitted to a complex talent support program, which can be expected to provide significant added value in addition to the usual school factors. Accessibility of parents, familial environment, unconditional support, parental responsiveness, sense of confidence, self-efficacy beliefs, modeling, or encouraging extracurricular interests are all part of these environmental factors. The question arises whether and to what extent intensive development at secondary school modifies the previous results of social learning. Can a support program at all modify the conceptual representation of students which were formed by the parents? Studying this topic, we had two main research questions in mind. The first was, to what extent and in what respects do the Arany János students' conceptual representations concerning work and leisure differ from those of their more privileged peers? That is there a difference between the two groups, the underprivileged and the more privileged students, in their representations? And the second question is, how do the conceptual representations relate to the future adult life roles? The question could emerge, why did we focus on leisure in relation to talent development? We had three reasons for that. Leisure is one of the salient life roles in adolescence, besides the roles of a child and a student. Leisure is just my life, said a boy in our focus group, and it seems to be an integral part of a teenager's identity. Secondly, our study is based on the recognition that leisure and worker roles reciprocally influence each other. This idea was advanced by Donald Super in 1957, and he postulated that leisure activities broaden the individual's perspective on the world of work. Since there have been many empirical findings about leisure, which shows that leisure activities reveal diverse options, enable youth to acquire useful skills, develop coping skills, construct a psychosocial identity, clarify values, increase self-esteem, and foster realistic attitudes toward work. In addition to these work-related benefits, the effects of leisure include positive mental and physical health, increased psychological well-being, happiness, and social interactions. And finally, the skills and challenges associated with certain forms of leisure help bridge the gap between childhood play experience and adult work roles. That's why we think that leisure activities are really important to study. I will say a few words about the participants of our study. The study covered almost 300 grammar school seniors from 5 secondary schools of Hungary, all of them operating an Arany János talent support program. Around half of the students took part in the program. They are the so-called study group, who are talented but underprivileged students. I will call them the Arany students or Arany János students. And the other half of the participants attended parallel classes of the same schools, specialized in some other subjects. They are the control group. Data obtained from the background questionnaire show a substantial difference between Arany János and control group students in terms of family status and number of siblings. In the study group, among the Arany students, there were more broken families and more siblings than in the control group. As for gender distribution, the number of girls was around twice that of boys in both groups. This corresponds to the national trend, the gender distribution of grammar school students in Hungary. Let's see our hypothesis, because we had 5 ones to be tested during the research. The first hypothesis is about the personal experiences of leisure activities. We think that the same leisure activity can imply different personal experiences and have various functions in life of the individual. For example, the main function of sports may be physical self-maintenance, but it can also be a means of social contacts. Or, let's say, for example, gardening with the parents may have the personal meaning of social care, understanding the importance of helping, or experiencing the joy of creation. According to the second hypothesis, underprivileged students in the program value the other duties function of leisure higher than those in the control group. Other duties here refer to not school-related duties like housework or helping the parents. Accordingly, we think that the members of the control group value the development and self-improvement function of leisure higher than those in the group under study. We also assume that the rank order of adult life roles differs in the study and the control group. And finally, our fifth hypothesis says that the functional representation of leisure rearranges the rank order of adult life roles. Let's see our methodology. Concerning the methods, a leisure and future vision questionnaire was developed on the basis of 4 focus group discussions. The focus groups mapped the conceptual schemas and semantic contents associated with leisure and work in the mind of the youth. On the basis of the content analysis of the focus groups, a questionnaire was created that targeted 3 topics. The first is the personal experience content and function of leisure. The second part of the questionnaire was about the similarities and differences of the experience of leisure and work. And the third part of the questionnaire was about ranking of adult life roles to be realized according to the vision. With this questionnaire, we had 3 main results. The first result is about the personal experience content and the function of leisure. Leisure gives me an opportunity to was the first question about the function of leisure, which offered various ways to finish this sentence. The 5 most important and 2 least important leisure functions were to be marked in the questionnaire. Basically, a total of 3 categories were created this way: the most important, medium, and least important functions. With the help of this question, we intended to identify the individual needs patterns and what leisure time actually means to students. In the table, it can be seen that as for the functions of leisure, the first place is occupied by cultivating relationships, being with those whom I love, irrespective of the content of the activity. The functions of relaxation and recreation are also important, while doing creative activities or physical maintenance are less important. 2 of the 11 functions in the list show a marked difference between the study and the control group, the non-school duties and the self-development functions. The underprivileged and talented students are much more likely to think that they can do their other non-school or non-work duties in the leisure time. This may mean cooking, doing the laundry, cleaning, caring for animals around the house, house maintenance, car care, shopping or gardening. Practically, it means that they are more likely to do these kind of activities in their leisure time. Difference was also observed in the two groups' assessment of the development function, but to the advantage of the control group, the students with average socio-economic status. These control group classes consider leisure as an opportunity to develop themselves in a self-chosen field corresponding to their lines of interest. They tend to consider leisure more as an extra time they can dedicate to self-realization and to broadening their knowledge. The second important result is about the rank order of life roles in the two subsamples. In this table, we see that the rank average of the role of a homemaker is significantly higher in the Aranka classes than in the control group. It means that the difference identified earlier between the two groups in the personal meaning of leisure time has been confirmed also by the students' answers about their future roles. That is, the family pattern, the value hierarchy they carry in themselves influence their ideas of both their current time use and envisioned future life roles. Secondly, the rank average of the leisure role shows the opposite. It is lower in the Aranka classes than in the control group. And thirdly, the worker's role shows no significant differences, but its rank position is higher in the control classes than in the Aranka classes. Again, the visioned life roles differ in the underprivileged and the control group. In the third part of our study, we examine the correlations between the function of leisure time and the rank order of life roles. This figure shows that the emphasis on the doing your duties function of leisure pushes back the role of a student among the adult life roles. Remember that doing other not school-related duties is appreciated typically among Arany János students. They have lots of other duties, so they can less focus on their student roles. Secondly, the emphasis on the focusing on myself function of leisure correlates with the lower ranking of the role of a parent. Remember again that these are typical in the Arany János classes as compared to the control classes. And thirdly, the physically maintain myself function of leisure raises the position of the leisure role in the rank order, while the recreation function of leisure pushes back the worker's role. Again, remember that the control group ranks the adult role of leisure as being more important. So, what do we know from these data? The study was meant to draw attention to the conceptual representation of leisure time as an indication for the future life roles and for career development. The difference between the functions of leisure also ranks the future life roles differently. All this correlates with the socio-cultural background and suggests that the family patterns are quite persistent to be rewritten by secondary school talent development and disadvantage compensating programs, however professional that is. The values, future visions, or planned future roles are significantly different in the underprivileged group. The family patterns exert a strong influence on the students' concept of their future career and life roles, and accordingly, their abilities management and self-realization in their future roles. We think that all in all, our findings offer clues for talent guidance, highlighting the psychological aspects of future adult roles, career building on professional talent follow-up and mental health support, with a stronger focus on the special needs of the underprivileged gifted students. Thank you.
Dear participants, my name is Fanny Trendl, and I am an assistant lecturer at University of Pécs, and I'm going to speak in behalf of my colleague Aranka Varga, who cannot be here, but our presentation is basically a common research project. So today I'm going to talk about a student organization operates at University of Pécs, where several students take part who arrived from the Arany János Talent Support Program, which was mentioned by the previous presenters. The Vizslácki Henrik Student College is an organization operates at the higher education in Hungary. Student College is kind of a unique establishment in the Hungarian higher education. It is a group of students who not necessarily live together, but work together on their own professional life paths. For example, support each other publications, researches, or they do common research and publications. So it is not an individual organization, but operates within a university or a college. The Vizslácki Roma Student College is an academic student society within the University of Pécs with a mission to mentor Roma students through academic projects and field research, and to support the process of inclusion by organizing forums and community building activities for Roma youth and areas. In 2002, this organization was founded at the Romology department of the University of Pécs with the aim of assisting the University of Pécs students of Roma Gypsy origin or interest in the area of Romology in their studies, scientific progress, and participation in public life. In 2013, in the framework of a European Union finance project, the Vizslácki Henrik Student College decided to carry out a more complex and efficient program to support the target group, building its activities upon the previously established institutional foundations. The establishment of Roma student colleges, their inclusion in the Higher Education Act, and their prominent support indicates that it must create conditions conducive to real equal opportunity for students in order to compensate for injustices in society. The diverse service system of colleagues promote inclusion with the aim of ensuring that students from socially disadvantaged backgrounds profit from the benefits offered by higher education. Now, about the aims and the methods. The general and concrete aims of the project could be summarized in the following. The basic objective of the professional program is that the ensuing student college should contribute to the formative of Gypsy Roma intellectuals committed to active participation and dialogue in public life, who combine professional excellence with sensitivity to social and public issues. Further aim was the achievement of academic success was supported by several means in the course of the project. It is observable that the activities aimed at achieving success in several cases also served the purpose of the prevention of dropping out. Talent nurturing was in the focus of the formation. The students became able to choose the learning styles, strategies, methods, which was appropriate for them. This enabled them to acquire knowledge more rapidly and efficiently. The cooperative learning methods applied in the trainings promoted the formation of the community. Due to the increasing success in their studies, the self-confidence and self-esteem of the students developed. Thus, the community also contributed to the prevention of dropping out. The system of tutors and mentors provided assistance of great value for the students in the enhancement of academic success, the efficiency of their studies. The person of the tutor was chosen by the colleague member from the teachers of the University of Pécs. The tutor gives continuous personal support to the student in the studies and in several other fields, thus ensuring the student's professional advancement and the prevention of dropping out. So the scientific activities and talent nurturing. The support of the scientific activities of the college members was another means of achieving professional success. Talent nurturing could be considered the central activity in reaching this aim, but some means and methods of the practice also helped achieve better study results and prevent dropout. In the framework of the VHS project, between 2013 and 2015, there were 28 research carried out in 14 different fields. 20 studies were conducted by students, 29 conference lectures were delivered, 10 books were published along with 34 studies and other publications. 12 university lecturers, 6 PhD students, 40 college members, and 9 other university students were involved in this project. As further support, the project assisted students in the publication of their research results, providing various platforms for publicity. The VHS conference is taking place every semester. The Romologist conference organized by the Romology department of the University of Pécs. The Romologia journal and several volumes. In addition to having the opportunity to be participants or lecturers at the conference, college members also gained insight into the necessary preparations for local or national conferences as organizers during the project. Let's see some results of the researches. During the period of 2013 and 2018, we did several research to examine the efficiency of the complex project. At the next part of my presentation, I will give an overview of these researches. In 2015, we carried out an action research project as the final phase of the Complex Service Development Scholarship Program, implemented by the Vyslotsky Student College. This part wished to map the experience, feelings, suggestions of the target group and the students. We prepared a questionnaire that intended to collect student opinions concerning all the important segments of the project. We managed to provide a platform for a community that views its development responsibly and critically demands a say in its activities and at the same time suggests more intensive participation for itself. During the project, there were 63 students from 8 departments of the University of Pécs participating in the scholarship program. 20 students entered in the first semester, and 15 of them continued to participate alongside 19 new students. The tendency of the change in the number of participants in the following semesters is shown in the diagram. Thus, it's apparent based on the indicators concerning the number of students engaged each semester that the project exceeded expectations each semester and by the end of the project. The next part is about the research made in 2018-2019 and examined the graduation and dropout data. During the 2013-2018 scholarship program, 102 students at the University of Pécs signed a scholarship agreement with the Vyslotsky Student College. They were the ones who received regular support through the program for at least one semester. Training education and dropout data of 102 students were studied in the Neptune academic system of the university. An illustration of graduation and dropout data shows that 61 students successfully completed their studies at Wysocki Henrik Student College from 2013-2018. In this study, unsuccessful performance dropouts are considered those whose student status was terminated at the University of Pécs without graduation. Those students who exceeded their studies completion period but still have legal status are considered to be in system and have a chance to graduate. It is evident that 35 are those who graduated and 9 were those who completed the graduation exam but did not complete the terms for final examination and diploma. According to our data, there were 17 people who, from some reason, lost their student status with the University of Pécs without obtaining qualification. We can examine the cause of students' termination, but these explanations and reasons can mostly be described as administrative categories. The pie chart depicts the reason why the status of former WH students was terminated. It is obvious that for most of them, the university terminated their status in the academic system because they did not fulfill their academic obligations. This is most commonly due to failing their obligation to meet course requirements 3 times or exceeding the allowed number of semesters, which is twice the originally allocated study time. For the other 5 students in the gray and blue fields, the reason is probably a complete loss of interest in obtaining their qualification. We did not get names of the students from the central university system, thus it would require more qualitative research to follow up with the individuals and verify the reasons behind these dropouts. Okay. From this diagram, it is easy to see that the college members with scholarship have received degrees mostly in bachelor and vocational training during the period reviewed. 5 have completed master's degrees and 1 completed training in pharmacology. Of those who completed lower education, many have studied more. 3 students started a new higher level vocational training. 1 student went on to complete BA, a bachelor, and 3 students continued in training programs. After completing bachelor studies, 7 students attended a master's degree course and 1 person managed to start a doctorate degree. Now let's see more about the students. Generally, most Roma students are in a situation that is described by the literature as a phenomenon of intersectionality. The complexity created by intersectionality is caused by a combination of 2 types of inequality. In a permanent situation, there are several categories of inequality that interact with each other, thus creating a new social category in which different causes of oppression cannot be separated. Intersectionality is the sum of the various capital gaps, financial assets, cultural, social, and symbolic capital, and negative social perceptions, latent or discriminatory, of each student in Roma student colleges, which reinforce each other. All members of the Roma Student College, 32 people, were interviewed in the autumn of 2017, and 27 interviews were used for the analysis presented in the presentation. The in-depth interview includes the Roma Student College members' life history, family and school memories, as well as their plans. The interview questions were aimed at exploring the external and internal effects and factors of the students' lives that can be linked to their successful educational progress. The interviews were proceed qualitatively with narrative content analysis using a predefined code system. We use the variable data of the interviewed students for the analysis of the interviews, their age, place of residence, their undertaken identity, their social status, time of their college membership, their higher education degree, and their grades, which were treated as independent and dependent variables in the analysis. The following questions were in focus. How did Roma Student College members' accumulation of capitals change? The second was, which capitals are essential for building and sustaining resilience against difficulties for elaborating successful life paths? Our hypothesis was that typical life situations will be presumably found in the life paths of the Roma Student College members, which influenced their accumulation of capitals and resilience. The examined group, almost half, so 11 persons of the Roma Student College students who were interviewed are characterized by intersectionality. A further 8 people identified themselves as Roma, but there were not documents related to the legal criteria for the disadvantaged status. Overall, 70% of the respondents are Roma. 6 college students confirmed their social disadvantaged status, but did not classify themselves as Roma. 2 members of the community do not belong to any of the aforementioned categories, but have joined the student college because of their different disadvantages, seeking a supportive background. The residency of the college students is also varied. 6 of them come from Pécs, 9 from small towns, and 11 from small settlements. This distribution also signals social disadvantages. The examined college community is diverse in terms of their family background. Their common feature is that, without exception, they have disadvantages which have made their school career more difficult. 2/3 of the respondents, 18 people, live in a dormitory. Students are from 5 faculties of the university doing 5 types of higher education. We hope to find forms of support which could apply to all participating students in this seemingly diverse community on their way to a successful academic path. The development of resilience and positive psychology. Interviews have been conducted previously among the students of the examined Roma Student College and were analyzed in comparison with a control group of high social status. The focus of the analysis was on the difficulties that surround schooling and on coping strategies that could address them. However, the supporting family background managed to solve most of the difficulties. Roma students who came from disadvantaged backgrounds to higher education highlighted significantly more difficulties in connection with their school career. The school and external organizations primarily compensated for these difficulties. Although there were plenty of issues on campus, supporters neutralized their impact and were able to outweigh the disadvantages. All this proved that in each institution and space, the right amount of inclusiveness helped the disadvantaged to become even more resilient in each institution and space. Okay. On the diagram is remarkable that in addition to financial difficulties, 3/4 of students mentioned that they have a highly motivating family background. Parents, relatives who tried to create the conditions even if they were unable to help with studies and considered further education important. The results confirmed the importance of school collaboration with the family, which is essential for joint efforts to motivate learning. There is an apparent pattern amongst families of Roma Student College members, older siblings or parents, whose following shows an extraordinary support in their narratives. For example, one of the students said, "I have a bigger brother who went to the University of Pécs and has done the master's in Pest. So there is a relative tying me to the university because I have a brother 5 years older than me, but our parents did not go to school, and I think somehow that generation created a gap, but now we do enjoy studying." All of this was a motivational force which helped to build confidence in their own abilities. It is also important to see that social comparison in the minority group works in the opposite way as comparison to a majority group. Self-esteem of those belonging to a minority group is not reduced, but rather increases by personal comparison to those who understand outstanding performances in their own group. In the case of minority group, the individual shares the success of another, counterbalancing the self-confidence reducing effect of stigmatization. Based on the interviews of the Roma student college members, this community is similar to a family relationship or friendship, and as a reference group provides obtainable patterns for learning motivation. The next student said that you can turn to the community and their members with anything. And the core that has developed within the community is, I think, so precious, and that is very, very important. And this has become a fixed point in my life, at least for a while. On the next table, we can see that external influences such as fellow students and teachers appeared in the 27 narratives of student college member interviews, who either hindered or strongly supported the examined members during their years at school. The slide shows that the students recalled equal proportions of persons who supported them and those who hindered them at the time that they were in elementary school. On the next table depicts the advancement in higher education when the student college members mostly talked about how they made their own decisions despite their preliminary fears. We can see the strengths of psychological capital in these traits: self-efficiency, optimism, in spite of external difficulties, the achievement of success, entering into higher education is associated with one's own personal decisions, features, and actions. Students also express their prior fears about further education. This consisted primarily of material burden, higher education being unimaginable, which was the result of the lack of cultural and social capital in the uneducated family environment. So one of the students said, "My goal is to become a teacher because I really like to deal with kids and people. And not only to give them academic knowledge, but I'm also thinking about kids wanting to break out and give them spiritual support, just like Mrs. Gabi, who was a teacher in the student college." So it is also important that around half of the Roma student college members have stressed that their family has done their best to help further education. Talent management in this sense has a positive Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect, or self-fulfilling prophecy phenomenon, was first discovered in classroom relations. Studies have shown that a teacher's negative or positive attitude towards a student, regardless of the student's ability, motivation, knowledge, etc., has a decisive impact on student performance. Talent management, in contrast to a catching-up approach for disadvantaged students, strengthened the professional elements of emotional intelligence in student college members. Interviews confirmed that the equitable environmental support with a positive pedagogical focus had an impact on individual development. They managed to achieve long-term results if they were able to reinforce the values inherent in the individual with external influences and develop the ability to shape their own fate. One of the important characteristic of resilient students is that they have played an active role in the development of their own lives. And now I would like to give a short overview about the framework of the implementation of this project. And this is the inclusion. Here you can see the list of the elements. In this presentation and in the research I am presenting now, we aimed to analyze the activities of the project of the student college, according to the components of the inclusive environment, which model was developed by Aranka Varga in 2014. In sum, it may be established that the student college operates from the beginning in the environment committed to inclusion, which currently entails it, after analyzing a few specific aspects, to be regarded an organization meeting the requirements described in the inclusive environment model. The analysis pointed out those components which ensure continuous inclusiveness while deficits hindering the full implementation of the inclusion process were also highlighted. That is, results of the study clearly delineated those functional areas of the student college where intervention and further development are needed. In relation to the material environment, we have demonstrated the students entering the student college have a continuously available space which provides them with the opportunity to exchange information and hold meetings, as well as which provides infrastructural conditions supporting their university studies. By contrast, the community space is less available for the public outside the student college. Realization of the inclusive approach, called valuing diversity, was refuted by students themselves in their feedback. The professional leadership of the student college only took participants' needs into account within a very narrow scope and did not structurally integrate intended changes proposed by students into the system. Implementers' preparedness and self-reflective ability was demonstrated by the cited studies before, which have revealed that student development and meeting challenges required that they themselves reconsider their methods and continuously enrich their trainings and activities with new ideas and solutions. We attempt to illustrate personalized contents and actions in the operation of the organization by presenting the student portfolio developed in 2013. Although students' personalized development and support was an important goal of the project, it was not fully realized according to college members' feedback. Among the criteria of assessment, probably development of a partnership network was the most successful that may guarantee wide-ranging inclusion. Among others, tutors, mentors, various NGOs and professional organizations surround the student college. They ensure firm connections with the university and the labor market. Although realization of the principles supporting continuous renewal of the system, the operation of the organization and achievement of the set goals was occasionally reviewed in the history of the student college, no strategic conception supporting change has so far been prepared. Such a document would strongly support continuous provision of the conditions, activities and actions ensuring inclusion during the projects of the student college. Incidentally, the present study also serves a similar aim by examining the Vyslotsky Student College according to a set of aspects based on the stages of the process-based model of inclusion. Okay. So to summarize my presentation, I wanted to show you the aims of the complex project was operated in the Vyslotsky Student College in the University of Pécs. I wanted to show you some researches we completed according to the student college, and I wanted to show a little bit from our framework we are working in. It was the inclusion. So thank you very much.